he does. He gets it through and showed some solid play as well.
That's right. So Language Hacker will await the winner of Monsanto and Gallon. So I believe we're just going to go straight into the next match here. You can see the bands already set through. Warrior banned away from Monsanto. Gallon with his War being banned. And Gallon Zoo Warlock, let me see what he actually has as his record. He messaged it to me yesterday based off the
13-5.
Yeah, like wow, just really good overall stats. 13, that's a huge edge. I believe he last updated me when it was 11-3, so very, very good results and justifies that Warlock ban. The Highlander Rogue, the combo Demon Hunter, the No Hands Warrior, definitely a little unusual as a lineup overall, but I gotta say that Gallon going a little bit off meta here for his lineup. You gotta like it.
Yeah, it's off meta, but not so far off meta that it doesn't make sense. Highlander Rogue, there's we talked about it earlier. There's just so many rogues right now, and they all work in their own way. And Highlander Rogue can win some of the later greedier matchups, but just less consistency overall. And speaking of going off meta, Monsanto bringing the Dragon Hunter, which is, I don't know, maybe a little bit refreshing to see after not seeing it for quite some time.
Right.
The last time we saw it was in Arlington, maybe, or at least in coming out in full force. We saw it a lot on ladder for a very long time, but I think it is refreshing to see at least a competitive environment, and I think that Monsanto's Hunter deck, which I was playing around with it plays the Imprisoned Felmaw, which is the 2-mana dormant Hunter minion that attacks a random minion when it awakens, or attacks a random enemy when it awakens. It's a 5/4. So it's quite good, especially when you consider that it can attack face against decks that don't play many minions or want to play minions early that usually can't be contested, like Shadow Jeweler Hanar in rogue decks. It prevents quite a problem because 5 face damage that early on and just that beefy of a body is pretty scary in the early game.
Yeah, and you gotta wonder if the Druid might be the X factor. Not everyone brought Druid this weekend. In fact, if you look at Group B, I believe only one person brought Druid over there. But, some unusual choices all around. Hunter is already also kind of sparse, and we do see Monsanto choosing to start with that Dragon Hunter. And overall, it just feels like these decks are supposed to be targeting a little bit slower startup decks. I wouldn't say that they target control decks per se, because I do think control decks, some of them are effective against a few of these decks. However, I do say that if you give these lineups like 2 or 3 turns more than you should, they will just outright blow you up. That's what the Rogue does, that's what the Hunter does, that's what the Druid does. That's what the Warlock does. So we might see a faster series, TJ. Even though it might go longer in terms of like the series if it's back and forth, we might see the pace of play in terms of what they're trying to do be a lot quicker.
Yeah, very good point. One deck that's slow is the combo Demon Hunter, but even then they draw cards so fast that it's a fast pace of play anyway at the end of the day. Monsanto runs into a bad matchup in the first game here, which is rough. Warrior, I think, is probably one of, if not the worst matchup for the Hunter deck, just because they have great ways to deal with the early stuff, and they also have big bursts of armor gain that can shut off the face plan. The, okay, I lost board, time to go face plan that oftentimes the aggressive Hunters have to rely on. And I think Demon Hunter is also, like the tempo Demon Hunter is also a pretty bad matchup for the Hunter. But we'll see. The thing about this Hunter deck is that sometimes it can just kill people. And that's something that you always have to keep in the back of your mind, is not to underestimate it, because it does pack a lot of damage. One thing that I didn't mention when we were going over the deck list was Monsanto also has the Scavenger's Ingenuity with Stone Tusk Pour in the deck. So it's very weird. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but it can burst you down quite well if you let it.
I know how I feel about it. That's awesome. Stone Tusk Boar.
I think I would still prefer an augmented porcupine,
Yeah.
even in this list, because augmented porcupine at least is still a little bit better when you don't draw it with Scavenger's Ingenuity, where a Stone Dust board, if you don't draw it with Scavenger's Ingenuity, is just a 1/1 with charge. Sure, it activates Kill Command, and you deal 6 damage for 4 mana, but that also costs 2 cards in a deck that usually empties their hand quite a lot.
Yeah, well, Monsanto has one of the most important cards in the Storm Hammer, but when you go first, you want to have a curve, especially with an aggressive deck like this. Even though it's built very mid-rangey, I think it's fair to say that Dragon Hunter is an aggressive deck. Well, it's not even as mid-rangey as it used to be, given that it's even lower curve with like Stone Dust Boar. So you're right, TJ. Gale, in the meantime, I think he's just going to be looking for his anti-aggro cards and finds a couple of really useful ones. And you're talking about the early game curve. This is much better for Galen than it is for Monsanto at the moment.
Yeah, this matchup feels pretty terrible a lot of times. Just because as long as they have one answer, essentially, to what you're doing in the early game, it just feels like an uphill battle because you lose the board so quickly, and it's very difficult to gain it back. And usually what you want to do with this deck is keep the board for as long as possible and push as much damage while you have the board, and then when you inevitably lose it, you either win at that point, or when you inevitably lose it, you switch to all right, everything I'm playing is going face now, and hope to burn him out. And a lot of that stuff gets shut off because of the Warrior Hero Power, because of Risky Skipper Armor Smith, and they have a lot of ways to get the board early, and that can sometimes be difficult to handle. Monsanto thinking whether or not he wants to hit face here with the Dwarven Sharpshooter. It would activate Battle Rage permanently, which you always have to consider, but I think when you're playing a deck that's as fast as this one, you would hate to be 1 damage off lethal at any point in the game, and if your opponent is spending 2 mana to draw cards in this early game where your hand is, very early game focused, you're pretty happy about that because it means that, that's 2 extra mana that you're up on your opponent that you get development, so.
Yeah, and, Galen could end up going for a greedier play, but, so the greedier play would be trying to get things like the Frothing Berserker out, which even wouldn't be the worst thing, because if Stormhammer does come down, it does kind of stop his development, but overall, I still think the Serpent Egg is totally fine as well. Now that he has Risky Skipper, there's not that much threat. And the most important thing about Dragon Hunter is that they just want to be a minion ahead, and Serpent Egg makes it difficult for the Dragon Hunter to be ahead. What is this draw? Stone Dust Boar off the top.
Yeah, even Monsanto smiled. When you don't draw it with the Scavenger's Ingenuity, it just looks funny. Because it's not like this deck is trying to combo anything, right? It doesn't play anything that copies a beast in your hand, and you're trying to buff up a bunch of Stone Tusk Boars and kill them in 1 turn. It just plays a Stone Tusk Boar, or plays a couple of them. And if you don't buff it, well, whatever. You have a 1-mana 1/1 with charge in your hand, and that's just how it is. So, it does look a bit silly.
All right, so for Galen, Galen is not really in the spot where he has to react. His opponent's kind of just set up stuff and not really done anything else besides it. And with this Warmaw Challenge and a Serpent Egg, Galen pretty much has seized control of the board. Monsanto might be on a burn plan already.
Yeah, that's how fast it happens. Turn 4, his 1 early game minion was removed. His Dwarven Sharpshooter got killed, and we're already talking about. Yeah. Oh, okay. Board's gone. Time to go face.
So funny. He has 25 health left. And he's like, all right, I'm on the bird plan.
Yep.
Yeah, and at the moment Galen picks up an Armor Smith, this game will be locked out.
Yeah, well, Monsanto does have, a hand that can get there. He has a lot of damage from the Storm Hammers. If he can hold the Dragon in hand for the Corrosive Breaths, then he has ways to deal with a problematic minion like a Frothing Berserker while still pushing some face damage. And then if he gets a kill command, his Stone Dust Pour off, it becomes something other than just a quite useless 1-mana minion in the hand. Oh yeah, also a Titanic Lackey would be pretty devastating too. From this Livewire Lance.
Yeah, Gallon gonna evaluate what he gets off this Livewire Lance Lackey generation. Find some pretty mediocre spells. I would assume that this actually isn't as good as he was hoping for. I think he was hoping for any kind of defensive card.
And he took damage.
Right. Well, the alternative
from the swing.
The alternative that I saw was like a risky skipper Frothing Berserker. That felt excessive, like you didn't need to do that. Now Gallon's at 12 life! A turn ago, Gallon was at 25.
The burn plan, Dan. I feel like Gallon can't bank on an Armorsmith now. I think he needs to try and set up a big Frothing and initiate some type of race.
Right. Attack first, find a Titanic Lackey, Katana up like the egg. Or the Warmaw Challenger. Neither of them come into play here, and I think Gallon is thinking about what you're talking about, the Frothing Berserker and Intra-Tolvir. That dynamic we actually talked about last week, how Intra-Tolvir activates Frothing Berserker to gain 1 attack. And then next turn, if you have double Risky Skipper with Commanding Shout.
Oh, jeez.
I just want to say that's lethal. I don't know if that's true, but that just sounds like lethal.
So it would be the Tolvir would die, right? So it would be I can't even do that math because minions would die in the process, like the lackeys would die. It'd be like 6 minions at first, that'd be 6 damage, then the next one would happen twice, so it would be 12 damage, 28, or what did I say? 28, 18, plus 2, 21. It might be, actually.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say it is. I don't know. Like I don't know if it is, if it isn't, but every single whirlwind effect, if you can keep 4 minions on the board, is +4, and as long as the Frothing Berserker doesn't die with his Commando Shout, it should be close.
The problem is he'd have to pick up one more 1-mana minion if he wanted to Commanding Shout and do it, right?
Maybe the order is to let 2 of those minions die, then redevelop with Risky Skippers and the Faceless Lackeys.
Wait, so the first round of it would be 6, and then the second 2 rounds would be 7. So that's 20. Yeah, it's lethal.
Yeah, but I think
because the Commanding Shout would prevent the Commanding Shout would prevent the Lackey from dying, but he's just gonna kill him. So it was lethal though. I'm convinced it was lethal. Because the Commanding Shout prevents the Lackey from dying. Alright, well, that's it. Back it up.
Stone Tusk Boar.
Good try, Monsanto. Good try.
If Monsanto had a dragon in his hand...
he would have had... Not quite.
He would have had...
The most efficient damage.
He almost would have lethal. Wait,
Yeah.
he would have had lethal.
He was at 12?
No, he would have had lethal.
How much damage was he at?
He's at 12.
He would have had 11 damage, right? It would be double Corrosive Breath hero power.
No, but he has the Sonta Spore for 4.
Well, so he has a dragon, he also had played a Scavenger's Ingenuity at some point in the game.
You didn't have enough mana. You're right.
Yeah. I mean, Gal's got to go, because if he doesn't play Armorsmith this turn and Monsanto draws a dragon, he's dead.
Right? Yeah, wait, what?
Yeah,
Oh my
he has
gosh.
exact enough mana. If he draws a dragon, he's dead. Is that a dragon?
Oh!
What would have been funny was he would have had exactly the Stone Tusk Boar.
That's hilarious.
Oh, that was a
but
dragon.
there's still time. There's still time, right?
But Gallon was greedy there.
That was unnecessarily greedy.
I think it was.
I think I get where his head's at, which is he's trying to set up for... Like, first of all, Monsanto's been holding a lot of cards.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Gallon says if it's not burn, what else could it possibly be? And it could be some more expensive cards like the Rotnest Drake.
No, it's burn.
But it is most likely burn. I mean, this deck tops out at 5 mana, and Monsanto's at 7, not really playing anything.
Yeah. Well, to be fair to Gallon, at 12, that would literally be the only way he could die. It's double Corrosive Breath with a dragon in hand, Stone Tusk Boar plus Hero Power. So he would have to have 4 very specific cards: a dragon, 2 Corrosive Breath, and a Stone Tusk Boar. That would be the only way he could die.
Well, he
so
would.
To be fair to Gallon, that he's assuming that would not happen.
Okay, that's fair. I think Kill Command is fairly comparable as well. But,
Oh yeah, so Stone Tusk Boar Kill Command is 6 weapon plus Corrosive Breath and Dragon. It's still 4-card combo, right? He would still need a 4-card combo. Or double Corrosive Breath Kill Command. That's a 3-card combo.
Yeah, that's
because that would be exactly 12. So, but I still, I don't know. I would err on the side of caution because the Sapper puts about as much power in play as Risky Skipper Armor Smith plus something.
Yeah, and I think Monsanto's going to be really sad when he sees his Risky Skipper being played. And that should wrap up the aggressive game plan from Monsanto. Does he have any other outs here? And Gal's taking a long time to think about it, just trying to be very sure. Sequencing so that way the Risky Skipper number 2 doesn't accidentally kill off some of the minions that he needs. But that 13 life gain, the form of armor, while setting up to turn lethal potentially here. Monsanto is dead. I don't think there's any way for him to turn this around now.
Yeah. He was, however, a dragon draw away from greatness.
Oof.
And this game will forever go down in the Hearthstone history books as the game that could have been.
That's right. It could have been a double Stone Tusk board lethal.
Unlucky.
Denied. Monzo's going to hang in there just to see if Gallon just gets a series of awful draws and doesn't things don't pan out, but it's pretty likely that that Gallon's still going to be able to answer this. In fact, with the commanding shout,
he pushes everything through the explosive trap.
Right.
Yep.
That's like particularly brutal because that's from an Ethereal Lackey. Wow. He's not dead. I think he's 1 damage off.
Yep.
You know, I haven't played Terran Gorfine with Commanding Shout yet, but I'm pretty sure it still works that way. And Monsanto's just going to go ahead and concede. And that'll be game number 1 with, even though it was close at one point, it was unnecessarily close, TJ. Let's just put it that way. It felt like it was Gallon's game to lose, and if he did, I'm pretty sure that I'd be waiting with like 15 Discord messages from Gallon talking about what was going through his mind and whatnot. I love Gallon a lot. He's actually a good friend of mine out of the Hearthstone Grandmasters. And whenever he messes up, he is the first person to kind of point at himself and just start talking about like all the reasons why he did things and also how bad he thinks he is, which I think is unfair to himself.
Yeah, definitely unfair. But he was close to losing there, but I give him credit because it would have taken a very specific 3-card combo or a couple very specific 4-card combos to kill him. And he wanted maximum R game in case it went a little bit longer. So And also the lethal setup with the Frothing Berserker, not that that was much. That would have been fun to see. So that game had a lot of potential for crazy turns, and none of them happened. But still, nonetheless, Gallon takes a 1-0 victory. The Hunter's off the table for Monsanto, and Gallon gets to continue with that warrior.
All right, so with that, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to resume the series between Gallon and Monsanto. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a sec.
Hearthstone Grandmasters is brought to you by T-Mobile, helping you stay connected to what matters most. Learn about T-Mobile's COVID-19 response on T-Mobile.com.
Oh, can you hold off on that for a second?
I really want to finish it.
It'll be a short interview. Don't worry. So just set it to the side.
Okay.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Thanks for sitting down with me. All right, we ready? All right.
Okay.
Hey everybody, I'm Doa. I'm here with Hunter Race, Hearthstone's world champion, of course, and fan of ice cream, I've heard as well. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about your history in gaming.
Is this guy kidding? I'm the Hearthstone world champion and he makes me wait to eat my ice cream? He knows the longer he talks, the soupier the ice cream gets. I'm a world champion. I don't eat soupy ice cream. Look at the ball slowly melting, slowly losing its wonderful shape.
As I was saying.
Quick adjustment.
Oh,
to
no,
your mic.
go ahead. Yeah.
Whoa, but
It's tape.
it's melting.
Yeah, but the battery's getting kind of low.
Okay,
And, you know,
now I'm getting really angry. I mean, look at it, and his dumb face. It's taunting me.
So as I was saying, I mean, if you think about it, that bite of ice cream, right? You feel it like making every sort of taste bud burst with like enjoyment. You know how that is?
What was the question again?
How do you build a deck in Hearthstone?
You're
I'm not.
TJ,
and
where's
you
the ice
forgot,
cream?
Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Grandmasters Week 2 broadcast. Monsanto and Gallon are currently playing. Gallon's up 1-0 after the Warrior was able to withstand the aggression from the Hunter. Although, again, it was a pretty tight race back and forth. And I know that Gallon was calculating all the possibilities and was trying to figure out his ultimate game plan, which was develop the 4-4 and pressure the Hunter right back. But in the meantime, we're going to go into game number 2. And remember, Gallon's Warlock is banned, which is not something that I think a lot of people were expecting. I think perhaps with the nerf to Sacrificial Pact or the change, so that it only can target friendly demons. I think most people weren't really expecting Warlock to be on many people's radars, and now that it's banned, it means other classes like Demon Hunter are free. This is last year's standing, so Gallon has to play Warrior. Now Monsanto gets to pick his best deck against that Warrior, and he's going to turn to Rogue.
Yeah, and this is a Highlander rogue from Monsanto. It does have a little bit of everything, and that's kind of the luxury you're afforded when you're playing a Highlander deck. It's got the Shadow Jeweler Hanar in combo with the 3 Rogue Secrets. It also has like some of the stealth package, but without the Sage, so it's just using them for board control, like Spy Mistress and Akama for value. And one of the other luxuries you're afforded is being able to play Waste Warden. And I like that choice specifically for Last Hero Standing, because Waste Warden allows you to queue this deck potentially, if you have to, against Druid, because it allows you to have sort of an extra flick effect on a board full of, the same type minion.
What now?
Yep, so we'll see if it ends up being a game where like Warrior can once again kind of dissect the aggression from their opponents, but Galley gonna really take his time here. He had a really good looking curve. I think the coin Intertolvir into the Rampage is one of my favorite ways to start off, and then if you can follow up with a Bloodsworn Mercenary, you are you're cooking with real gas there. Because then you just start pressuring and tempo your opponent out of the game. And one thing that I heard Zottle talking about earlier today, which I really like that he pointed out, was that he really enjoys this Warrior deck, particularly because it feels like the play patterns change game to game. Usually, there's like small nuances about matchups that you're supposed to know, so that's how your deck plays differently. But with the Warrior, there's so many different packages and ways that you can kind of mix and match all of the cards and pieces together that a lot of times you end up just changing your game plan, even though you play the same matchup in the same game like 10 times in a row. Because if you have more of a board-centric development plan, you can do that. If you have more of a combo set up like big dramatic battle rages to get major resource advantage, you can do that. Or you can just kind of like kill them with the Bloodsworn Mercenary inner rage combinations that we've seen in the past. It's a very versatile deck, and I think that's what made people fall in love with it right now.
Yeah, it's kind of got a little bit of everything, right? It does have. You mentioned the pressure plan. It's got a huge draw engine, and that that's a recipe for success for just about anything. We've seen decks that kind of fit that category. Like, for instance, I don't know why, but oddly enough, this deck kind of reminds me of Cube Warlock. And because the Cube Warlock had so many different avenues for victory and so many different ways to like use the cube, and I'm not like equating Cube to Terran Gorfiend, it just feels like a lot of the deck's decision points are the same as Cube Warlock. And it's hard for me to pinpoint why, but you had sort of the same type of decision trees where if you have Skull of Gul'dan in your opening hand, then is that right? Is the weapon, the legendary weapon, then your play pattern changes and you're just trying to find the demons. But if you just have like cubes and doom guards, then you have to go for type of pressure plan. It feels like that kind of play pattern, right? I don't know if that makes sense. But that's when I first started watching the deck, and I was watching No Hands Gamer stream it. It felt like that, where there's a lot of different combos, and each combo kind of has its own, does its own thing.
Exactly, and I think that the versatility of this deck plays very similar to like Highlander styles, except Highlander usually wants to curve all the way to the top, and this is a very low curve deck outside the Blood Boil Brute. So for the most part, it just feels like to me a deck that has many evolving identities, which makes it very interesting. I wouldn't know how to categorize it myself. So for example, right now, Gallon's playing Anchor, and when you have an early Anchor, it lets you set up combo turns. It's not necessarily game-ending combos, but it's like a big combo development turn where you're waiting for Battle Rage and you can get off really powerful, risky skipper combinations to dissect your opponent's board while also developing proactively yourself. And it ends up becoming very defensive despite it having all these amazing tempo tools at its disposal.
And it's
Meanwhile-
allowed to do that.
Oh yes, it's
Right?
allowed to do that
Like-
because it has so much rebound potential. You
Yeah,
can afford to
exactly.
lose so much HP. It's really not. It's really not an issue.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh wow, you know, I actually haven't seen Zephyrus for the Bloodsail Corsair, but that is very clever. I've seen people play for Ooze, obviously. Huh.
Well, that
Very
allowed him
nice.
to kill the Serpent Egg while also destroying the weapon, and he knows that he gets to get the Zephyrus back. I was thinking more along the lines of just Zephyrus for 2 mana. Probably offer you like a Shadow Word Pain in that instance, and then Underbelly Fence trade into the egg, and then trade the Spy Mistress over. It would develop a pretty big board, right? You'd have the Zephyrus in play as well as the 3/4. Or, you know, if you Shadow Step the Zephyrus, but this works out, I think, better because you shut off the Anchor draw for the Pirate. If it looks like Gallon's looking for something specific, like Risky Skipper, to activate a Battle Rage, then if he's one draw deeper into the deck, that buys you a lot of time, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So he has, like, the thing about Monsanto is that he does have good response cards, but he doesn't really have anything good proactive. Oh, okay. Interesting. Is there a way to manipulate? Like, what's the proper way to manipulate this? So that way Monsanto can just get really far ahead onto the board.
Well, I don't know if there's a way to manipulate it. You could just, like, Zephyrus pick whatever non-rogue class card it offers, and then Underbelly Fence Edwin. Like, that's one option. But then, obviously, you're kind of having a throwaway Zephyrus card where you're probably just picking, like, an Earth Elemental, or...
I think it's going to offer you, like, a Stampeding Kodo in this position.
It might, yeah. That's
Right,
interesting.
like, that's just one of those weird things where, like, again, Zephyrus. We've also seen we've seen Zephyrus multiple times, hundreds of times by now, in situations where the best possible card, we can call it out. It's when it's like an unusual situation where you're not desperate or so far ahead that it's not exactly clear how you really want to go about it.
It's one of my favorite games to play, is what will Zephyrus give?
Ah, yes.
Because, one, it seems like it's changed over time of what he prioritizes. And two, there's some situations like that where I think you could discuss that for 15 minutes and still not come up with a definitive answer of even one of the cards that he might give. But let alone all three. But it does make sense that he holds on to it because there wasn't a way for him to kind of curate the Zephyrus to a way that he could capitalize on that plus Edwin and also get a good resource from Zephyrus at the end of the day.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of bruising going on right now. Ooh, Monsanto picks up Pharaoh Cat. Okay. Ah, wait.
All right. What?
Is there a possibility that Zephyrus, if you play Pharaoh Cat and you play Zephyrus, that it might offer you another Van Cleef and you can double Van Cleef?
You wouldn't have enough mana.
But why wouldn't he?
Like this turn or next turn?
You can't guarantee. Well, not necessarily this turn, but I'm saying, like, is there a way to manipulate Zephyrus to do that? I don't think you can.
Well, you could play the Edwin right after the Pharaoh Cat. Like next turn, for instance.
Right.
You Pharaoh Cat Edwin, Zephyrus, you played 3 cards, you have 3 mana left. He's offering you Edwin 100% of the time. So you'd have
Right.
a 4/4 and then an 8/8.
Wait, what if you play Edwin and you play Zephyrus? Would it offer you Shadow Step?
He's not that smart. He's not that smart. Knowing that you would want the Shadow Step for the Edwin and that it would be 1 mana, like
Yeah,
he would-
I'm not sure. I'm just trying to think outside the box here because Monsanto's in a tough spot, and
Yeah.
Gallon is like, well, with that Battle Rage draw, he's primed to explode here. He has Rampage, Bloodsworn Mercenary, and Battle Rage. I believe he doesn't want to activate Dirty Secrets, though. That's kind of something that he's been avoiding.
Yeah, he also knows there's a Zephyrs in hand, so if he expends too many resources onto this board,
Right.
then he knows that it'll probably bite the dust. But at the same time, he's spending resources to gain resources with the Battle Rage. So, like, if he spends Bloodsworn Mercenary, that's just an extra card that he's drawing with Battle Rage, so... That's tough. I think, you can limit how long you wait until you give them a Dirty Secrets to limit their possible plays, but at some point you just have to just give them the 2 cards and go for it. And I think this is the turn, because his turn would be so weak if he just decided to play minions. So, just give him the cards and, say go. I also think, no, he had tested for Bamboozle, obviously, because he had played the Warmaw Challengers on minions.
Yeah.
Alright, Backstab Tiamat picked up. Still quite a big board to deal with. That's 2 4-10s.
Yep.
Those Warmaw Challengers get out of hand very fast.
Yep. Zephyrus.
So many options.
Zephyrus doesn't really offer anything meaningful here outside of single target removal, I believe. Or it could offer Brawl, but I don't think Monsanto wants to give up his own board so easily.
I wonder.
Is there a world where he goes for like Tiamat Zephyrus and tries to pick up Lay on Hands?
Oh, interesting. I mean, I think it would offer you Tyrion instead of Lay on Hands.
I think it would also offer you Lay on Hands if you only have 2 cards in hand. But at the same time, some of the healing from Lay on Hands would be negated, so I don't think it would... Yeah, you're right.
Right.
Because it wouldn't offer you Lay on Hands unless you... Oh, if he takes damage?
I think if he plays at the beginning of next turn, it might offer you Lay on Hands, but if you play at the end of your turn, it might not.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
Because Zephyrus tries to give you multiple options that have differing effects. Like one, he offers a card you can play right now. That's like a minion usually. Then he offers you like a removal option in case there's something on the board. And then he says like, maybe you're looking for something for next turn.
Like a mystery box.
I think that would be a Tyrion. And I don't think he'd offer you Tyrion and Lay on Hands, for example.
Yeah. See?
Okay.
That's how crazy Zephyrus is as a card, because we've spent 85% of this game talking about what he could end up giving you.
Yeah. Gallon with no risky skipper, which would just probably blow out Monsanto right here. Ends up picking up Sky Raider instead.
See? Showing the value of that Bloodsoul Corsair on the anchor swing.
I'm kind of thinking about just a slam on the Blood Boil Brute, but Gallon wants to instead develop this Frothing Berserker and I guess exhaust his opponent out of resources. He still has a pretty sizable board.
Well, talking about resources, that's good. Could he realistically go for a Tyrion in this spot?
Yeah.
And just trade over the Frothing Berserker and go for Tyrion? It might make more sense to go for something else and eviscerate the Frothing Berserker. I don't know, that's hard to sequence as well because you need to combo it. And Zephyrus may not offer you as good of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of things that Zephyrus could offer.
Oh, what about Chaos Nova?
Wait, was there a lethal opportunity that we're missing? No, you didn't. Flame
Strike. There you go. Yeah, that's way better. You keep your 6/6 and you remove his board.
Someone's got to lead the charge.
And now he's got Dragon Queen Alexstrasza to follow up for next turn as well. This is working out quite well. Good job, Zephyrus.
Yeah, Zephyrus was actually 1 damage off from lethal for Monsanto with Bloodlust, because Bloodlust Eviscerate would have been 21, I think.
Yeah, but he wouldn't have known that the Eviscerate was there. So even if it was,
yeah, you're
even
right.
if it was lethal with the Eviscerate,
Yeah. You're right.
Blood and plunder.
Yeah, Gallon not really killing this Van Cleef is starting to haunt him a little bit because he knew about the Dragon Queen, or not the Dragon Queen, the Zephyrs in hand, and now Dragon Queen Alexstrasza is going to just start overwhelming with tempo, and it looks like Monsanto has turned it around. The Highlander Rogue, showing you a different build of the Rogue that I think some people were expecting, even though it is seen when you play it on ladder. I don't think people have agreed that this was the best version of Rogue to bring, but it does have its uses, and you can see why.
yeah.
Zephyr Shadow Step is just so insane.
So many options, as we proved by talking about it for much of the game. And there's the Risky Skipper, a little bit too late in the game. And again, kind of showing the genius of the play that Monsanto made earlier to get rid of the anchor when he did, because that Risky Skipper would have been a lot closer and could have even been the card that allowed him to swing the Edwin turn and maybe even swing the game, though there was a lot of value picked up by Gallon. He's going to be able to clear off a lot of this, but he's completely out of resources, which means Battle Rage is shut off if he draws it. He's drawing 1 card a turn. And Monsanto has the Ysera Unleashed with a bunch of Dream Portals in his deck. Anytime one of those is drawn, it's just going to be bad news.
Gallon picking up value trades, but Monsanto... Oh, interesting. Monsanto has the ability to use Blackjack Stunner now. I wonder if Monsanto just wants to push here. He has 12, 18, 22, 23 damage. Jeez.
At this point, he could probably just trade down. He's out of stuff. No way to get more stuff.
Ah, yeah, I like this. You don't really see Blackjack Center very often used on your own minions, but you can just return Van Cleef and restore it back to full health and then some.
Yeah.
Really
nice
clever and a well-played game by Monsanto. This was super well done. Gallon's not out of it just yet.
Yeah. He could attack this Blood Boil Brute into a bamboozle target.
It most likely will kill whatever gets summoned by the, or whatever gets transformed from the Blackjack Stunner.
Oh, well, this is also clever because this, on average, takes away power from the Edwin Van Cleef. Oh.
Well done. Okay, we might have a game.
Still 7 Dream Portals in the deck, and
jeez.
Sir Finley!
Sir Finley!
Oh, come on!
Swampy Haggath is better, but yeah, Sir Finley would have been nuts if you got like the Warlock Hero Power or something.
Yeah.
To thee.
Oh, Eye of the Storm. So probably Feral Spirit, Eye of the Storm, which is just a 5-mana build a massive board.
Yeah, and Gallon really is out of gas here now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
oh, nice.
That is nothing.
Yeah. This isn't even like those mage games where they have Reno up and you're just hoping that they do something that draws them into fatigue or something along those lines. But now it's down. Monsanto takes the victory. A very nice game from him to come back in the series.
Yeah. Very well played by Monsanto. So now the series is tied 1 game apiece, and the Warrior is done. Rogue does have to deal with the Demon Hunter and the other Rogue from Gallon. Gallon's Rogue is also of the Highlander variant. So,
yeah.
We've seen some Rogues just kind of be more concentrated and be a more efficient Galakron Rogue with a lot of 2-ofs, and we have Highlander Rogue. Do you lean one way or the other, TJ?
So I think we talked about this in like week 1, but I love the Highlander Rogue. I just think that the value that it offers with Zephrys and Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, and you can build it quite greedy. You're allowed the luxury of playing Dragon's Horde. Dragon's Horde can give you Rena the Relicologist, it can give you Bran Bronzebeard, it can give you Elise to duplicate your hand. Crazy things like that are possible because of the deck, and I just don't feel the downsides of a Highlander deck very often when I play it. So I think I prefer the Highlander version if we're talking about just straight up versions of Rogue. But Gallen's going to go ahead and play his Demon Hunter here. This is the combo Demon Hunter instead of Tempo Demon Hunter. One of the few players to play combo. And I don't think a lot of players were expecting the combo Demon Hunter with the Kael'thas nerf and, just kind of overall state of the metagame. It was a little bit of a riskier bring, but I think it ended up paying off just because of the fact that unintentionally the meta kind of slowed down, and that allows the combo Demon Hunter to have time to draw through their deck and get these Kael'thas combos off.
Yeah, Kael'thas combos don't really affect Demon Hunter unless they're really trying to end the game like a turn quicker, but Demon Hunter's so good at drawing their deck, and they usually are going to be okay regardless of whether or not they have Kael'thas in hand on 7. They're probably just going to wait till 8 to 9, 10 mana anyways.
Yeah, there's a couple very specific combos that were removed with the nerfs that took place, and those are being able to Kael'thas combo and Kayn Sunfury in the same turn in slower matchups that rely on taunts like Priest. You can no longer do that just by, obviously being able to draw through your deck without having to worry about pressure, since Priest doesn't pressure, and then, Kayn Sunfury and Kael'thas in the same turn. Secondly, and kind of similarly, Kael'thas plus Altruist, they both got hit, which means that you can't go for combination turns with that anymore and go for those big 30-plus damage turns. So those are the two combos that were interrupted or, changed so that they are no longer effective. Unless you have the coin with Kayn Sunfury, but usually you're using the coin to actually keep going with Kael'thas and maybe get that secondary demon out, but no longer possible.
Yeah, except that, you still don't have to. You're correct in that that combo no longer exists in the same turn, but I think Demon Hunters have found that you still don't need to rely upon that. You can just simply use Altruist the turn before and then combo. So I totally understand what you're saying. And
I played 40 games of the deck, and I never did either of those things once.
Right, exactly. It's kind of a corner case scenario.
Yeah, it's a very corner case scenario, but just trying to highlight, maybe one of the reasons why I think if you're playing against the greediest Priest deck in the world who's playing a ton of removal and then just massive late game taunts, you have time to draw through your deck, but then you need a Kayn to get through. Like, that's the only situation I can see that being super useful. Okay, so Zephyr Shadow Step available, but I don't even know what you'd look for in this instance if you were to play it. But that is essentially his only play unless he wants to kind of buy back with this Pharaoh Cat. But again, don't know what you're specifically looking for except for a play that you can make this turn, which there are quite a few three or less reborn minions.
Yeah, in this position, I think Zephyrs would offer you something to play for the next turn if you clear off the board. Also, it'll give you something to develop this turn, like Flame Imp. So, it doesn't seem particularly good. So Monsanto just going to go ahead, preserve his HP. I do like this. Rogue does struggle with one thing historically, and that's healing. And now we'll have even more difficult time against a class like Demon Hunter, which is going to output that damage. Gallen draws the Kayn Sunfury.
Yep. A lot of times it's just an efficient use of 4 mana at some point in the game. Maybe even this point, because he can trade it in preemptively, get it damaged. That Seal Fade is not really a threat. He can use it to push face damage, but honestly, that's essentially the only play he can make. He's got the double eye beams on the far left, which quite annoyingly cut off the left side of his hand from Outcast. And he's just going to expend one of these twin slices in order to efficiently be able to push some face damage with Kane and not have to worry about that Pharaoh Cat. Maybe sensing that Monsanto's hand is quite slow. And honestly, you don't need to full combo with this deck sometimes. You know, sometimes just Inner Demons plus weapon charges and chip damage over the course of the game add up to where you don't need to go for the full Kael'thas Sunstrider, like 20 plus damage OTK. You just get him.
Yeah, ideally you could just end it in one fell swoop, but you don't need to do that. You can piece together kills over time, especially if you have cards like Metamorphosis that's already been played. It's, you know, likely that you're going to be layering it over a couple of turns, if not more. And for Monsanto, I think he really wants to remove this Kane Sunfury. He has a convenient way through Zephrys because he gets Shadow Word Pain. Oh, interesting. Did offer the Kieran to our captain as like an alternative in case like, hey, you have 2 mana, play this card for tempo. Interesting.
Zephrys loves his tempo, Dan.
Yes, he does.
Wow. Talk about awkward hands.
Yeah, the hardest part about it is there's no card draw.
Yeah, well, there technically is, but it's tucked in between a bunch of unplayable cards. The Consume Magic down there.
Right, but it's not even playable, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally unplayable, Dan.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that Galen... Like, in a way, because Monsanto has such a slow start developing, it's actually panned out well for Monsanto, so Galen can't really chug along through his deck. Demon Hunter's so good at drawing cards if you give him targets to do stuff with. But, you know, let's say Galen is even holding, like, middle cards like Skull of Gul'dan, which is something that Monsanto is going to be thinking about heading to turn 6. Mm-hmm. There's so many cards being held in the middle, right, that like it's difficult for Galen to even get his cards out if you were to even set that up. Monsanto holds only 3 mana now. He has no plays himself. This is so annoying.
He could go for Zephrys into Animal Companion.
Wild Growth. What if
Would
he
it
just
keep
offers you
at
the
this
same
point in the game?
Yeah. What if Zephrys just like analyzes a state where it's like, huh, would you like Wild Growth in this position? Or perhaps...
So many options.
Yeah, I feel like it would be Animal Companion and like Brightwing.
It might be just the same as you'd get on turn 2 playing him. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I'm not sure if Zephrys analyzes your total mana versus your current mana available. Wow, what a pickup here for Galen. Skull of Gul'dan.
Poor warlock.
Okay. Does he want to ditch the second version of this twin slice, or does he want to just play Zephrys as a 3/2?
Well, Zephrys, I feel, is just always more damage. Unless you very specifically need an extra Kael'thas charge, spell charge. But 0 mana Zephrys allows you just to Pyroblast on 10.
Yep, that's true. And kind of the way this game is going is like no one is really being aggressive enough to warrant playing Zephrys on the board for tempo.
Yeah.
Coin into the Wrapped Golem. Now
This
Galen
is
has
quite
something
annoying,
to
actually.
It is annoying, but Galen finally has cards to target with, so I think he's not that unhappy. Let's see. So, for example, he could use his I-Beam, Immolation Aura, and Hero Power, but that leaves a lot more mana still left of this turn. What's the best efficient use of it? Perhaps using Metamorphosis at the end of that?
Yeah.
That would be 6 mana.
Does allow him to expend a lot of cards.
Right, get it out of the hand, which is important in case his next draw is Spectral Sight or another Skull. So I do like that. I like this I-Beam. I think I just would Hero Power, take it down, and then use the Would you use the Metamorphosis Hero Power here? I think so, right?
Probably.
Right, just get that 10 damage and put your opponent within a critical strike range.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually getting pretty close to just killing him if he goes like Metamorphosis, Inner Demon next turn, and then the following turn he can go Inner Demon again. That's assuming there's like no taunts in the way, but he even has Consume Magic to maybe silence. That's just 1 mana, so I don't know, this is getting close. And then at any point in the game, if he draws the last duplicate in his deck, which I think he still has a few more duplicates. Let me check that, actually, for Zephyrus activation. He has now drawn an Eldrachi Warblades and
I wonder.
a Chaos Strike. Those are the 2 Eldrachi, excuse me.
Too soon.
So 2 duplicates left, I believe.
How much damage is this? Inner Demon's 8. Metamorphosis is +5, so it's 13. 2 slices is 15. Part of me wonders if it's just correct to go for it anyways.
Yeah, I don't see why not, because he even has Inner Demon plus the Silence next turn in case 1 taunt is played. So he can Mana Burn, Metamorphosis, Inner Demon, and Hero Power.
Would you I-Beam so that Consume Magic has a chance of drawing you a card?
Burn away to ash.
Actually, that's a good question.
Right, he does have a floating mana, which is why I ask.
Yeah.
But he gets that extra damage by Hero Powering. I think you...
Short.
I don't know, it's actually kind of close. I think you want to push his extra damage, because then you still have the opportunity for other lethals. Like, I think Altruist becomes potential lethal in case your opponent double taunts.
Yep.
Yeah, Altruist would be lethal there. So I think this is better for sure. Also, I don't think he can die at 21, even though he's staring at 7.
Yeah, he knows his Zephyrus is there, so it would be
Right.
Zephyrus offering efficient damage like Wind Fury.
Healing Touch could be offered by Zephyrus here too.
Yeah.
So,
He actually has
I mean-
19.
yeah, this is still a lot of damage.
Yeah.
It's very surprising how much burst can come out of nowhere.
Wait, he wouldn't have mana for 19, but because he wouldn't be able to SI7 agent. But just gonna have to put a taunt in the way. That's about all you can hope for at this point.
Too soon.
And then 1 mana with this board state.
Yeah, he's really hoping for that Gal doesn't have a silence, but he's obviously putting taunt because he says if you have Inner Demon or another weapon, it still gets in the way.
Oh, Radiance! There you go.
Ah.
Well, but he's
still
still
dead.
He's exactly dead, actually.
Consume Magic and the Twin Slices. Well done by Galen. Hey! The alternative lethal, which was fun as well. But yeah, this is going to wrap it up. And Gallon's going to go up to a 2-1 lead, beating the Rogue. And what was kind of a tougher matchup anyways. I think the combo Demon Hunter has the edge over the Rogue. Data does back that up, and my play sessions also indicated for that. So Gallon in a prime position to wrap up this series. One of the things about last year's standing 2 is that if you do get that first win, you're in a pretty good position to wrap up the series. Because assuming you built your lineup very balanced, you'll be able to answer their counter all the way down. So game 1 you win, they try to answer, and then you answer back and forth, and then you should be in the advantage spot going into game 5.
And that's what it seems like it's going to be. That was a very interesting game because it felt like nothing happened almost the entire game, and then the Rogue just died. And I think that has a lot to do with the mana burns, because mana burn came on turns where Monsanto was planning on doing something and had kind of built his turns around doing something, and then mana burn came out and kind of interrupted that. But overall, I like how Gallon played that one, paced his resources, went for damage when he could, and now we'll get to see this versus the Druid.
Yeah, Druid seems to be a problematic class for the combo decks because they can't answer it with their big waves of minions. So statistically, Monsanto is favored in the next 2 matchups against the Rogue and the Spell Druid, but we know that that's not always the case.
Yeah, especially considering this in particular Demon Hunter has easier times dealing with Glowfly Swarms because of the Immolation aura. So Gallon does have maybe some answers or some time that he can buy with Immolation orders to get through his deck, but you have to draw quite quickly, and you also have to have the Immolation auras on time in order to make that happen. Because even something as simple as like Iron Bark can be problematic as the game progresses.
Right.
For this deck, you have to save a silence for it, and then if you don't have Immolation aura for Glowfly Swarm, or if Glowfly Swarm is just buffed, then all of a sudden things get awkward. So it's just overall rough.
Yeah. So I think Gallon really would love to save Blood Mage Thanos for the ideal Immolation aura, but I think he's just going to try to favor the card draw, play to his outs more than play reactively. And Monsanto would want a Wild Growth here, but he did pick up Overgrowth. I don't know if that changed anything.
What to do?
That shouldn't change anything because Wild Growth still leads into Glowfly Swarm if he wants to on 4. Now, I'm Gallon. Do I just I-beam my Thanos so I can Spectra Sight this turn, or do I set up the Eldrazi Warblades?
I think you I-beam just because you need to find the Immolation aura, right? If Glowfly Swarm comes down and you didn't expend these cards to draw cards, then you could be in a position where you just get run over, and then Power of the Wild comes out and you can't get to that point. But okay. So no Glowfly Swarm because Kael'thas was picked up, and it would have only been a 4 Glowfly Swarm, which is quite weak. It could just be picked apart by just a couple simple cards from the side of the Demon Hunter. So it looks like Monsanto's going to try and see what he draws and try and make like one big push for a resilient board, because essentially like an Overflow pickup or a Fungal Fortunes pickup over the next couple turns is really going to allow him to go off with Glowfly Swarm and Soul of the Forest and make a super resilient board that will end the game on the following turn. So all it takes is one, usually against Demon Hunter.
Right. And Gallon has some of the best tools to end the game, right? He has Kael'thas and all these different cards, but seems like what he doesn't have is a very good proactive play outside of this Eldrazi Warblades. He could Zephrys onto the board, but again, it doesn't have the activation until much later into the game. And now Monsanto picks up the Forest Aid. That is so powerful right now.
Yeah.
Because it just introduces a threat check. Like if Gallon doesn't have it, then or doesn't have the immolation aura, then Monsanto just presses in with more damage with Power of the Wild and Soul of the Forest.
Forest 8 is so hot right now.
Oh, that Forest. He's so hot right now. Well, I mean, that is a potential option for Gallon now that he picks up the Skull of Gul'dan number 2. I was thinking about saving the coin for Kael'thas opportunities. Oh, finds a Twin Slice.
Oof.
Okay. Well, I mean, he's going to take out at least one of these Treants. He could Novice for a 1/1. Mana Burning would also restrict Monsanto from being able to immediately Forest Aid again, but I don't think that's going to be Monsanto's play anyways.
I hope you like my invention.
Oh, it's one card away.
Aura.
Well, he doesn't have much of a choice now, but the problem is Immolation Aura may not even be an option for a board clear next turn if Monsanto just buffs these up even just a little bit.
Right.
So he could go Kael'thas, Innervate, Moonfire, Soul of the Forest, but I don't know how good that is. Could just go Power of the Wild, Soul of the Forest.
Yeah, the one thing I would be concerned about with Monsanto is my opponent has an Altruist, and how the best play around that.
Yeah.
And play around it in the sense that, like, you would try to do your best to present a board, but you want to also make it so that way they can't get off easily. But if you assume that 2 of the cards are completely free... Oh, no, he played 2 of those cards. So it's only one of those cards that are free. That makes me a lot more confident to extend out to the board, because he's not holding a bunch of free cards. When my opponent plays Gul'dan and like doesn't play any cards, it makes me think there's like this giant Altruist coming my way.
And he only has 6 mana next turn. Because Monsanto ramped quite a lot. Even with Mana Burn, Monsanto still has 2 more mana than Gallon does.
Right.
So looks like it's just going to be a push here with Soul of the Forest plus the Power of the Wilds.
Right. What's the duplicate count for Gallon?
Let's see.
Crimson Sigil Runner.
Still has both Crimson Sigil Runners. Still
and a
has
Spectral Sight. That's it.
No, he has the Spectral Sight in the far left of his hand right now.
I believe that's Consume Magic.
Oh, he's played a Spectral Sight then. Yeah,
okay,
he dumped the
I
I-Beam on his Blood Mage to play Spectral Sight on turn 3.
Okay, so then he's just 1 card off then.
And there's a Crimson Sigil Runner, so Zephrys is active.
So in his mind, he's like trying to think about how he can survive here. I-Beam costs 1. And if he Immolation Auras... Okay, so I-Beam Immolation Aura will kill off 3 of these 4 minions if he swings and attacks with his weapon as well.
Yeah.
And that's entirely reasonable. Then he knows the Forest Aid's coming. Yeah, really good sequencing here. And there's a possibility that there's a second Forest Aid. Monsanto drawing dead with no card draw here. That's like the biggest problem. He's had ramp, he's had threats, he's had board solidification and buffs. He doesn't have the card draw. And if he goes super wide again, Gallon has Zephrys into a brawl. That's just like, in almost anything that survives, even if it's just a single Kael'thas, Monsanto doesn't have anything else, and it would have to be like an Overflow or a Fungal Fortune's top deck. And that's just 4 out of 20. That's not really high odds. I guess he does have some other ways that he could potentially just develop right afterwards. And he is on 10 mana, so if he draws like Wild Growth, he'd be able to draw, or Rising Winds. If I'm Monsanto, I might just play another Forest 8 and just kind of pressure my opponent, but that doesn't feel great.
Nah, not at all. I don't know, nothing this turn feels great, just because if you unload Kael'thas, it just seems like it's wasted.
Right.
It just seems like it's a set 4/7, which, yeah, that doesn't feel good.
Right, and if you're Gallon and you see your opponent rope out and they are just starting to play Kael'thas, you know that they don't have the overflow.
Yeah, and he essentially needs overflow next turn.
Right.
If he really wants a chance, because Zephyrus is going to come down here active with 10 cards remaining. Slightly faster than you normally expect.
Right. I mean, Gallon did draw a big portion of the deck. Look at the difference in the deck sizes right now.
Yeah.
Oh my
okay.
god.
Overflow off the top unlocks a lot.
A Fungal Fortunes off the top. That is absolutely brutal. Gallon leans back in the seat and an overflow. Holy moly. Dramatic swing here, and this is probably too hard to come back from.
Yikes. Oh my goodness. How about another Fungal Fortunes?
I mean, he could do anything he really wants here. It's all about how far he wants to extend onto the board.
All the way, Dan. I believe the correct answer is all the way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm afraid of discarding Mount Seller here. Another overflow. Yeah, I think he goes all the way here.
He's kind of got to go, though. He's going to run out of
go
time.
quick. I would be very upset if Monsanto ropes out and doesn't do anything.
So, you know, at least... So he's going to play the full mana Glowfly Swarm?
Okay, and then Gift of the Wild. And that's it. Okay, so he's saving for the possibility of drawing a Mount Seller.
Yep.
And it really does not matter here. Gallon does not have enough cheap spells here, I think.
Yeah, even if he gets an Altruist off the top, his far left card is Kael'thas. His far right card would be Inner Demon. So there's really not much he can do.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Kane can hit face for 3.
Yep, time to scoop him up, Gallon, and that's it. So game number 4 in the books, and Monsanto kind of chuckling himself how he escaped death, or potential death. I mean, there's no telling what could have happened, because we did know that the next card he drew was Fungal Fortunes and Overflow, but it allowed him to redevelop the board. So it would have been a much more competitive game, it felt like, had he not had Kael'thas survive. But I would definitely say that Gallon was favored in that spot if the Kael'thas end up dying. So a very painful 1 out of 8, or I assume it was 1 out of 8 for Gallon. Yeah, but there's some people who think brawls are 50-50. Legitimately, I don't know how I don't know how to process that, but I think they're talking about like how Brawl picks a winner first and then chooses a minion afterwards. So there's a lot of conspiracy theories that people use to justify how unlucky they get.
To each their own, Dan. But
Yes.
Gallon's last deck is Highlander Rogue, I believe. So Highlander Rogue versus the Druid. Gallon's Highlander Rogue is also built quite a bit differently than we saw Monsanto's. He has a little bit more like defensive options, like Overconfident Orc. He has a Bone Wraith, Frozen Shadow Weaver. He also has an Escaped Mana Saber. So that can allow for some little bit more power turns, or at least swing turns, get some power cards down faster. The one thing he doesn't have that Monsanto did have in his rogue that would have helped him in the Druid matchup specifically was the Waste Warden. So it's basically flick or bust, or get on the board fast or bust. Or I guess Zephyrus is also a potential out, but even then, if a Glowfly Swarm comes down on like 4 or 5, Zephyrus does not offer a full 2 damage board clear until, what, 6 at the earliest?
Yeah. The thing I will say about this Highlander Rogue is that it does seem like it is a lot lower curve than a lot of the other Highlander decks, just in general. I think Rogue in general, Rogue usually could play a lower curve because they're trying to combo things, but in terms of broad strokes, I would say that this Highlander Rogue has a lot fewer late game heavy hitting threats compared to Highlander Mage, Highlander Hunter, and also other really powerful Highlander decks. So that does make me feel like Gallon might be able to get out on the board quick enough to contest Druid.
Back.
And also, don't forget just the possibility that Edwin Van Cleef could just end the game. So, Gallon's not on the coin, so that definitely reduces his chances.
Dan, that's been a possibility for 6 years.
Oh, yeah. 4 more years. And then we'll have the decade of Edwin Van Cleef.
Maybe we'll throw some kind of celebration. We'll have like a party. What?
That's right.
What do they call it? A centennial?
Centennial? Centennial anniversary is a 100th anniversary.
Oh, that's 100. Oh, jeez.
A period of 100 years. Such as events at a national or world level include the Centennial Exhibition in 1876.
It's a decennial.
Decennial, got it. What's that? The decennial celebration of Edwin Van Cleef in 2023.
If we end up having a centennial for Edwin Van Cleef, I have a lot of questions. If I love Hearthstone more than most people, and if Hearthstone is around in 94 years, I will be very surprised.
Yes, and also, I think the main surprise would be, how are you still alive, DJ? 94 years, that would put you like 115 or so?
I mean,
120 years old?
Like, half my heart is artificial at this point, so...
That's true. You would be able to survive.
Yeah. I'll be essentially made out of metal at that point.
Great.
But as long as my brain functions enough to be able to dump all my cheap spells and play it with Van Cleef, then I'll still be trucking along.
Maybe if I become fully bionic as well, then you can cast to the left of me and then we'll be magnetized.
Dan,
you'll be the ultimate useless caster.
Magnetic minions will have been far gone by the year.
That's what you think. We can find many ways to recycle this mechanic, DJ.
2110. 2114.
I hope not. I think magnetic is actually one of the coolest mechanics that has been made in the past couple of years, because I think it is a mechanic that changes play patterns significantly based off the state of the game, and I like that. Well, we're going to go for a wild growth, or an overgrowth rather, an opportunity to ramp up for Monsanto.
Ooh, the coin overgrowth.
Right. And now we have Gallon that can set up boards leading up into the Glowfly Storm. Restless Mummy is great to respond to things, but sometimes you can just play it and it's functional just as a sticky threat.
Woo!
Not yet. Not yet, but soon, TJ. Soon all these Kael'thas dreams will come true. And that's what we're talking about. You know, this Druid, even though Monsanto was in a difficult spot, being down 1-2, it just felt like the Druid was favored against the last two decks that Gallon had. Incidentally enough, it felt like Gallon needed to sweep with Warrior. Otherwise, it felt like Monsanto had the edge of being able to come out 3-2.
Huh.
I wonder.
Looks like he might have to dump a Wrath here.
No one.
I even might be tempted to like Wrath for 1, draw a card, and then play a Power of the Wild.
Yeah, that's entirely reasonable.
But if
Oh,
he's doing it
Wrath
on this,
for
then he's Wrathing for 3.
Interesting.
Yeah, like Wrath for 1 on the Overconfident Orc to damage it so you take less damage. And then dump a Power of the Wild, because right now he's like a card draw source away from having the most insane turn imaginable with Kael'thas, whereas like if he plays Kael'thas next turn, he has not that fantastic. Well, it's okay, it's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. It's Kael'thas, a full board with Glowfly Swarm. That's all buffed up with Soul Forest, but imagine if that could be all that stuff that I just mentioned, plus you drew through half of your deck. And maybe even Gift of the Wilded. It's insane, but it could be more insane,
So many options.
is what I'm saying.
And I think that's what most people that goes through their mind. Like, how can I make this even more fantastic, as TJ was saying? The
How can I go
Fantastic
even
Adventures of
further beyond?
Kael'thas.
Alright, time to go.
Yep, I think we waited long enough for with Monsanto. He had an opportunity to... Gal had an opportunity to develop as best as he can. Monsanto, his power turn is now. So with this, Iron Bark, Power of the Wild, and Soul of the Forest should lock in most of this. Now, Gallon does have an answer to the Zephyrus.
But then there's the Forest Aid to back it up.
Yeah. I wonder if Gallon's just going to get offered Mass Dispel in this position. And I'm pretty sure if he does get Mass Dispel, he should take it.
There's no lethal, right? Savage
Oh,
Roar.
wait. You might be right. What if...
Backstab Savage Roar. So there'd be 9, essentially 25 health.
Right.
Nah, it's not enough.
It
Wait
offered
a
him
second.
Savage Roar.
It offered him Savage Roar. It rarely does that. So Savage Roar would be 12, and there's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. No, it was 2 off. Savage Roar was 2 off with the backstab.
Dang, that's crazy. Super close.
Suit.
Yeah. And that's assuming he would have been able to get clear trades, which he would have. He had a 9 health, health trade breakpoint, but Savage Roar was just a little bit off.
Well, Monsanto can just kind of load up the pressure right back. Forest Aid and take up a couple of value trades. But Gallon has the Shield of Galakron and Bamboozle.
The ultimate combo.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, Fog Beam is the same sound effect as... What is that sound effect? I know that. The Zap Cannon? From Dr. Boom Hero Power?
I don't think so. That doesn't sound right. But maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong about all these voiceover stuff, and there's people who've been able to discover Easter eggs. Very much so about it. Oh wow, the Galancron for 1 draw. That's not gonna pan out the way he wants it to.
No. So... 16 damage on board. If he eviscerates, he can only take off... He can eviscerate dagger hit. Only takes off 2 because he would take the damage preemptively, but, I mean, he's going to take a beating here, and then he doesn't really even have much to rely on outside of that to get him out, because he no longer has Zephyrus. He's a turn away from Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. He just does not have much going for him. And this might be as simple as Power of the Wild and push damage. Power of the Wild here, power, push damage, wild growth, useless. Could maybe... I mean, he could heal his Kael'thas for 1 with the Crystal Power, but that doesn't seem reliable either.
Yeah, I think in this particular position, Monsanto is just trying to like read what is in Gallon's hand that he's like making such a desperate play and just making sure to do his due diligence. But for the most part, he should feel pretty comfortable here. And I think Gallon is really just his priority will be to what's the best way he can set up Dragon Queen Alexstrasza for his swing turn. And you know, I think that he is still unlikely to make that comeback, but it's not over yet. He might be able to pick up, like, you know, Crazed Netherwing, for example, off the Dragon Queen Alexstrasza.
Well, Gallon needs a miracle draw. Because he's dead on board if you can't take care of anything. At least one of these minions. Shadow Jeweler Hanar, okay.
Maybe.
That plus Bamboozle into Flame Ward? That is something.
I never lie, but I never tell the truth.
That would keep him alive, but barely. That is not
Pressure
a Flame
plate.
Ward. So Redemption, and now get Flame Ward. Boom.
He's thinking about whether or not it's better to play Bone Wraith.
Yeah.
And it might be.
If Monsanto literally has any piece of removal in his hand, if
That's
Gal
right.
can deal a single point of damage, then and yeah, that won't do it either.
Yeah, he's just gonna play Vaporize, and it'll make Monsanto think.
Yeah.
I'm sure if Gallon plays the Vaporize, at least he'll make Monsanto sweat, but there's no real point in it.
Yeah. Going for taunt. Nope.
And that's going to do it. Gallon taps out. Monsanto wins a slugfest of a series.
Oof.
That was, I kind of thought it was going to be a faster matchup back and forth, but both players really taking their time with each turn basically coming down to the final seconds of the rope. And now we're going to go into the winners match. But, you know, what a really hard-fought series. And it's kind of what we're talking about before, which was the Druid having fewer answers. So Gallon having that one pulled out from under him for the Demon Hunter, that one stings a lot.
Yeah, it really does. And, you know, he has to kind of put that behind him. He's not out of the day yet. It's not like he's eliminated. He just doesn't have a chance to play on Sunday. He's still going to move on and face Zalay in the elimination match a little bit later. And could have a long day yet ahead of him if he keeps on winning. But that's what he has to do if he wants a chance to play in the top 4 on Sunday and bank some of those points, especially considering that he did not make it to the top 8 last week. He's in a position where he wants to earn as many points as possible to get into that Division A and have a better chance of qualifying for the playoff seeds and you know, a better chance of avoiding those relegation spots as we move into the round robin. But Monsanto, there were so many games where it felt like he was just out, and it felt like he was behind almost the whole series. But somehow he won. Kind of a weird way to end things. But he moves on to the winners match.
So with that, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have match number 3 featuring Monsanto versus Language Hacker. We'll be right back.
Hearthstone Grandmasters is brought to you by T-Mobile, helping you stay connected to what matters most. Learn about T-Mobile's COVID-19 response on T-Mobile.com.